Well, hey everyone, welcome to Life Groups tonight. Hope you're having an amazing time in Life Groups. And I'm so excited because tonight we're starting a brand new series called BeReal, all about having healthy relationships as God intended us to. We're going to be talking over the next few weeks about the power of healthy relationships. And tonight we're going to be talking about healthy relationships in our home. Before we start tonight though, I want you to know that no matter what your home life looks like, there's still a part for you to play. That God wants you to have healthy relationships. No matter what your circumstance, no matter where you've come from, that He wants us to have healthy relationships. Because the health of our relationships will really determine the health of our life, the health of our relationship with God, and the health of our relationship with those around us. And I want to encourage you that no matter what your context looks like, there's something significant for you. Jesus said this in John 13. He said, "Now I'm giving you a new commandment to love each other, just as I've loved you. You should love each other." And I want you to hear this tonight. "For your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples." You know, sometimes in life it can feel like we need to go out into the world. We need to go change the world out there. But the plan of God starts right in front of you, right where you are, with the people that are closest to you. I think it's amazing that Jesus said, and I've been really challenged by this, that people will know that you're my disciples by how you actually love them. And that's a challenging thought because sometimes it feels like we need to do all these things for God, but actually it first starts with how we love and how we love those closest to us. And I want to encourage you that whatever your home life looks like, that is your mission field. That is your mission field. And tonight we're going to talk about that. Tonight I'm going to share a bit of my testimony about growing up in a non-Christian home. My mum gave her life to Jesus in the last few years and it's been amazing, but I didn't grow up in a Christian home, and I want to talk about that tonight, that hopefully that'll encourage you. And then our amazing Hutt Valley youth pastor, Vic Letoa, is going to share about being an amazing sibling, growing up in a Christian home and what your role is, what you can do to love your family in that context. But before we go any further, I want you to know that no matter whether you've grown up in a healthy, amazing home or whether you maybe don't have a good relationship with your parents, maybe your parents are separated like mine, or maybe you're an only child like me, whatever your circumstances look like, there's actually something for you to take away tonight. And so we're going to start by asking you this question in your life groups. We're going to go around and we're going to talk about this. What's one thing about your family or one person in your family that you're thankful for? Why don't you talk about that right now?
Hey guys, my name's Vic and I'm going to be sharing about what has helped me to have great relationships with my siblings. And regardless of what your home situation is like, whether you're close to your siblings or not, I'm holding faith today that you can have an incredible, healthy relationship with your siblings and with other members in your family. So for me, I grew up in a big family. There's 7 of us all up. I've got 4 brothers, and yes, I am the only girl. It's a big mixed bag of different personalities, gifts, talents, hobbies, interests. I also grew up in beautiful Samoan culture, and in our culture, family is the number one thing. I was definitely that high schooler that was not allowed to spontaneously go and hang out with my friends after school. I had to make plans with my friends 4 weeks in advance and get them signed off by my strict Samoan parents. But as funny as that is, what I believe is that was such a blessing for me, because as a family, we would eat together, hang out together, and yes, do the chores together. And because of that, we became very close. And I can say that my brothers are some of my greatest and my best friends. And one of the ways that I've learned to grow healthy relationships with my brothers was that I had the conviction, the firm belief that God had called me to be my brother's number one encourager, to advocate for them, to speak life into them, to push them into all that God had called them to be. And I believe that could be the same for you today with your siblings. Hebrews 10 says, "Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another." 1 Thessalonians 5 says, "So encourage each other and build each other up, just as you are already doing." Encouragement in the Bible, it speaks to building up, to edifying, to strengthen, to repair. It talks about promoting another person's growth. Encouragement is about brick by brick, word by word, action by action. So I encourage you today, start with the small things with your siblings to encourage them. Maybe it's a kind text that they have a great day. Maybe it's taking an interest in something that you have no idea about, but they're passionate about it, taking the time to listen, to take interest, to ask questions. Maybe it's going out of your way to help them. Or maybe it's encouraging them in something that they've already recently achieved and they're really, really proud of. And maybe you're sitting in the room in your life group tonight and you're thinking, man, I'm really not that close with my siblings. So maybe for you, it starts with prayer. It starts with, in the privacy of your own room, praying to God to cover them in protection and strength. Maybe it's you praying that God would guide them, He would bless them, He would strengthen them. For me, I count it one of my greatest honors and privileges in this life to be a sister to my 4 brothers. I know that God has placed it in my life for a reason, and I want to steward well what God has placed in my life. So I want to encourage you and challenge you. The words you speak to your siblings mean more than you think. They carry more weight than you could ever imagine. You are called to be their biggest champion and encourager. And my question for you in your life group today to discuss is, what is one thing that you can encourage your family member in? Throw back to your life group tonight.
Well, I hope you're having some amazing discussions in life group, and it was so cool to hear Vic's testimony about her family, and I think it's so powerful, the thought that we can be the greatest encourager to those in our family. And I want to share a little bit of my story tonight, because it looks a little bit different. And I know for many of us across the country, many of us will have grown up in Christian homes, but there are also a lot of us that haven't grown up in Christian homes. For me, when I was young, my parents separated. My mum pretty much raised me. I didn't grow up in a Christian home. And for a long time, I probably took that for granted. I took that for granted in the sense that I actually had no idea how significant that was. For me, I was the friend that was talking about how she had to book in time with her family. I was just kind of like, man, get me out of the house, otherwise I'm that weird only child with no siblings and I've just got no one to hang out with. So I was out of the house all the time. But I think, and the amazing thing about that is before I even became a Christian, I managed to create an amazing relationship with my mum. For a lot of the time, it was just us because, I'd go between my parents' houses. But when I became a Christian, I had an incredible revelation, a challenging revelation. I remember I was at a conference when I was about 16 years old, and God showed me a picture of my parents meeting with Him. And I felt in my heart that I had taken for granted the role that I had to play in my family. I was placed in that home life for a reason. I used to look at my friends and think, man, they've just got good functional families, that their parents love Jesus, that there are all these amazing things happening in their family. And I took for granted how incredible my family was. I have an amazing relationship with both my parents, but my context in my life looked different to others. And I honestly just wished that I was living a life that someone else had. But in that moment, I realized that God had placed me in my family to share my faith. And I want to read a verse that over the years has helped me so much to share my faith with my family. And I want to encourage you, whether you grow up in a Christian family, whether you've grown up in a non-Christian family, this is actually something that God has called all of us to do. And I want to share a verse that's actually spoken to me so much. And I want to encourage you that no matter whether you've grown up in a Christian home or not, that there's actually power in this verse and how we live our lives. Jesus says this in Matthew chapter 5, verse 13 to 16. You're the salt of the earth, but if salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It's then good for nothing, but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. You're the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. And I love this bit. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. I realized when I was 16 that God had called me to shine the light of Christ. That God had called me and placed me in my family to be a living testimony of His goodness. That I've been placed in my family's lives to show them the love of Jesus. And I want to encourage you, no matter what your family life looks like, this can even be applied to your friendship, to even your siblings that might not know Jesus, even if you've grown up in a Christian home, that you've been placed in your family to shine the light of Christ. You might have a dysfunctional home life, there might be some breakdown in relationships, but maybe God has placed you there. I believe God has placed you there to stand out for your faith, to be the difference in your family. You know, sometimes I think we can discredit what God's actually doing in our lives. Sometimes we think our testimony is not valid, but I want you to know that God has placed you wherever you are, whatever your family looks like, to shine His light. I want you to know that, man, and sometimes it can feel like that all these years of my life are just like, they've been for nothing, but nothing's wasted in God. It actually says in Romans 8:28 that God works all things together for the good of those who love Him, according to His purpose. He has a purpose for your family. And I want to encourage you that you can be a testimony of God's goodness. What does that look like? Well, it could be by speaking well, honoring your parents, even if they maybe don't reciprocate it, maybe if they don't show it back, that you could actually help around the house, that you could actually encourage them. As Vic said, it could look like encouraging your siblings. It could be praying for your family. It could be standing in the gap with your friends, believing that something would change in your family. It could just be by being consistent in the things that your parents ask you to do, or in ways that you can support your family if they're struggling. But you're in your family for a reason, and I want you to know that. Don't ever discount what God's placed you in your family to do. He's called you to shine the light, and just like I realized when I was 16 that I was called to shine the light of Jesus, I believe that's the same for you. When I was 20, my mum gave her life to Jesus, and that had been a journey that I'd been on for many years, praying for her, believing for her, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way. There were times where I was like, man, I haven't actually really been carrying faith for my mum, but God's faithful, and His timing is perfect. And if you're in a non-Christian family, if you have non-Christian siblings, even if you're in a Christian home, and you're believing for them to come to know Jesus, I want you to know that God cares about them even more than we do, and He wants to know them. At the moment, I'm praying for my dad, and I'm believing that he's going to come to know Jesus. And even over the last few weeks, I've seen God do some amazing things in my dad's life. So I want to encourage you that you're placed in your family for a reason. And in our life groups right now, I want to ask you this question. What does being a living testimony in your family mean to you? How can you practically outwork your faith in your home? Why don't you talk about that right now?
Hey guys, hope you're having great discussions in your life group so far. Right now, we want to create a moment in every life group where you can pray and bring your requests towards God. Maybe there's something that I've spoken about or something that Ed's spoken about that has really stood out for you. And so we believe that prayer is powerful. We believe that we pray to a God who is good. We believe that the prayers of a righteous man avail much. So in your life group as you gather, I encourage you, bring your requests to God. Maybe you want to ask God to help you to honor your parents. Maybe you want to ask God to help you soften your heart, to encourage your siblings. And maybe there's a tough situation in your home and you want the peace of God to reign in your home, in every room of your household. And so I want to encourage you that in this moment, over these next couple of minutes in person with your life group, something can shift, something can come alive in your heart, your spirit can be encouraged. And so we are holding faith that God is going to move in that room tonight. So I'm going to throw back to your life group leaders, and we see you next week.